Think about every piece of meat you've eaten in your life. Chicken, beef, lamb, fish. Now notice something. They all share one thing in common. They all eat grass, they all eat plants. But it's not only plant-eating animals that exist in this world. There are wolves, lions, eagles, sharks. All of them are meat too. Muscle, fat, protein. So why have you never eaten a wolf steak? Why is there no lion kebab on any restaurant menu? We can't raise them, you'll say. Humans raise crocodiles. They don't have enough meat, you'll say. A lion carries over 100 kilos of muscle. It's a cultural thing, you'll say. Civilizations with no contact with each other arrived at the same rule. So this is not a choice. This is a signal of something. And that something comes from a mathematical rule evolution wrote millions of years ago, and a lesson humanity learned through pain. Let's run a thought experiment. You're stranded in the Arctic. Your food is gone. You have two animals beside you. A cow, a polar bear. Both are meat, both are muscle, both are protein. Which one do you eat? When you're on the verge of starving to death, the answer seems obvious. I'll eat whichever one I can get. But this is exactly where the universe's trap begins. Because if you eat the polar bear's liver, you will die in a single meal. Indigenous peoples who have lived in the Arctic for centuries knew this. You never touch polar bear liver? Never. Science only explained why in the 20th century. Hypervitaminosis A, the concentration of vitamin A in a predator's liver, can kill a human in a single meal. Now think about this, a cow and a polar bear standing side by side. Both mammals, both have a heart, a liver, muscle, both protein, both meat. One is raised on farms in every corner of the world. Billions of people eat it every single day. The other one kills you just because you ate it. This is not a coincidence. And the answer sits in a much darker place than you'd expect. Let's start with a number, 10%. In 1942, an ecologist named Raymond Lindemann discovered something. At every step up a food chain, 90% of the energy disappears. It burns off as heat, it gets spent on movement, it's lost in digestion. Only 10% makes it to the next level. Now make this concrete. There's a meadow. It produces 100 kilograms of energy. That meadow supports 10 kilograms of deer. Those 10 kilograms of deer support 1 kilogram of wolf. To produce 1 kilogram of wolf meat, you need 100 kilograms of plants. Now take this to farm scale. Raising a cow already takes years of grain and grazing land. But now think, what if instead of raising that cow for meat, you feed it to a lion? 10 kilograms of beef produces 1 kilogram of lion meat. So to bring a single lion to slaughter weight, you need 10 cows. 10 cows for just one lion. No civilization in history could ever afford this. No farmer ever had the surplus to solve this equation. Raising a predator means raising animals just to feed that predator. Resource on top of resource, cost on top of cost, loss on top of loss. And this math never worked out. But this mathematical barrier doesn't just make predator meat expensive. It makes it biologically toxic. And to understand why, we need to go inside the predator's body. 1911, Antarctica. Douglas Mawson and his team were stranded in the middle of a freezing continent. Their food was gone. Hunger had reached a desperate extreme. And someone suggested an idea. What if they ate the liver of their sled dogs? They cooked it, they ate it. Within days, their hair began to fall out. Their skin peeled off in layers. Their organs began to fail. It wasn't poisoning, it wasn't infection. They had simply eaten liver, but that liver belonged to a predator. And a predator's liver had become such a concentrated storage of vitamin A that a single meal could kill a human. This is called hypervitaminosis A. And this is not just a vitamin issue. A predator's body does one thing throughout its entire life. It accumulates. This is called biomagnification. Here's how it works. A small fish absorbs toxins. A large fish eats hundreds of those small fish and accumulates all of their toxins. A shark eats hundreds of those large fish. By the end of its life, that shark's muscles carry decades of pollution history. The animal at the top of the food chain is simultaneously the toxic waste dump of the entire chain. In the 20th century, this mechanism nearly wiped out an entire species. DDT, a pesticide. It washed into rivers. It passed into fish. It passed into eagles. And DDT concentrated inside eagles' bodies until their eggshells became paper thin. When a mother eagle sat on her egg, she crushed it under her own weight. When DDT was banned in 1972, fewer than 1,000 nesting pairs of bald eagles remained across the entire continent. Being at the top doesn't make a predator powerful. It makes it toxic. Think about a cow's day. It wakes up, it grazes, it walks, it grazes again. Its stress hormone is nearly zero for its entire life. Now think about a wolf's day. It tracks its prey for hours. It sprints, it fights with its teeth. Sometimes it goes hungry, sometimes it gets injured. Constantly in combat mode, that difference gets written into its muscles. Cortisol chronically elevated. Adrenaline embedded in muscle tissue. Glycogen, the compound that makes meat tender, constantly burned as fuel. The result, predator meat is tougher, more fibrous, more gamey. It carries a sharp, musky smell from testosterone-related compounds concentrated in the tissue. Hunters who have eaten mountain lion meat in the wild all say the same thing. You eat it to survive, not by choice. But the real problem isn't taste. The real problem is what the predator has been eating. A cow eats healthy grass. A predator eats the weakest, sickest, oldest members of the herd. So it eats the sick ones, the ones carrying parasites. And it carries everything inside those animals into its own muscles. This is how trichinosis spread. A parasitic infection passed to humans through predator meat. Dramatically higher parasite loads have been documented in bear, wild boar, and wildcat meat. Eating a predator is essentially swallowing the entire disease history of the food chain in a single bite. But now think about this. Understanding all of this requires science, it requires microscopes, it requires chemistry. With none of that available, thousands of years ago, civilizations with no contact with each other had already arrived at this same rule. How is that possible? Leviticus, approximately 1400 BC, the third book of the Old Testament. And inside it, a very specific list. Animals that must not be eaten. Eagle, vulture, hawk, every bird that hunts with talons, every mammal that hunts with fangs. All predators, every single one. Now go to the Arabian Peninsula in the same era. Islamic dietary law draws the same line. Animals that hunt with fangs are forbidden. Birds that hunt with talons are forbidden. The rule is almost word for word identical. Now travel thousands of kilometers away to North America. Dozens of indigenous cultures. None of them ever made contact with each other. Different languages, different religions, different continents, but all of them stood before the same animals and said, "This cannot be eaten." How did this happen? There are two explanations. The first is practical. Those who ate predators got sick. They died. The survivors passed on the rule. An unwritten medical knowledge transformed over generations into story, into law, into religion. The second is deeper. Predators were never just animals. Lion, eagle, wolf, bear. In Egypt, the eagle was the eye of the gods. In Rome, it was the symbol of empire. In North America, the wolf was a spiritual guide. Can you eat something you worship? Can you bring to your dinner table the animal whose image guards your temples? Humanity never even tried, so humanity removed the predator from the table. But it had to put it somewhere. Now take a step back. Millions of years ago, evolution wrote a rule. Energy diminishes as it rises. Toxins accumulate as they rise. The top of the food chain is simultaneously the most powerful and the most poisonous place. When this rule was written, there were no humans, no civilizations, no religions, only physics, only chemistry, only mathematics. Then humans arrived, and they couldn't read this rule because they had no laboratories, no microscopes, but they still arrived at the correct conclusion. Through pain, those who ate predators got sick. The survivors told the story. The story became law. The law became religion. Religion became culture. And thousands of years later, science arrived and reached exactly the same point. But there is something far deeper here. Humanity didn't just remove the predator from the table. It moved it into the mind. The eagle became the symbol of empires. The wolf became the messenger of gods. The lion became the embodiment of kingship. To eat something is to consume it, but to make something a symbol is to carry it into eternity. Maybe humanity's refusal to eat predators was not a weakness. Maybe it was the most intelligent solution ever found by the most intelligent animal on Earth. Consume it as meat and win once. Carry it as a symbol and win forever. And perhaps the real question is not this. The real question is, if humanity did the right thing for thousands of years without knowing why, what are we doing wrong today even though we know better?